Hey everybody, thank you for tuning in to my very first podcast, Scoober Doober, which is called Scoober Doober because that's what me and my wife call it when I drive for Uber and Lyft, which I've been doing for about a year, kind of as a second job when we need the extra money, and honestly, I enjoy it. It's pretty fun. I get to meet some interesting people, some real weirdos, and for a while I would post on my Snapchat story me venting about my rides as I went, and people thought they were pretty entertaining, and I thought it would make for a fun podcast. So for my first episode, I'm just going to tell you some of my best stories that I've gotten so far. Some times I got kind of scared with people in the car, and some that were just confusing. Thanks for listening. Let's do this. All right, so the first story I want to tell you guys was a ride that I got myself really scared, even though it probably wasn't necessary, but it was still an interesting, unique ride. So I get a request to pick this guy up from his apartment in Taylor Mill in northern Kentucky, and the ride tells me that I'm taking him to Union. And that's only about a 20-25 minute drive. So he gets in the car and I start heading that way, and he says, hey, I wasn't sure how to do it in my phone, but I need to pick her up in Union and then come back up to Newport, which is about a 30-35 minute drive from there. And I said, okay, that's fine. Like, I can change the address in my phone. So he says, okay, cool. So we head down to pick his girlfriend up. And these kids are about young college kids. So we pick up his girlfriend, and I hear that their plans were to go to his friend's new house to have dinner with him up in Newport. So as they're riding on their way there, she lets him know, hey, by the way, I have to be home by 10 o'clock tonight. And at this point, it's like 9:15. And so the guy's like, what do you mean you have to be home? Like, we can't go to dinner if you got to be home that soon. And she obviously still lived with her parents, and she's like, sorry, I have to. So they start getting in a little tiff, and they get quieter and quieter as they start to argue, and I'm realizing they don't want me to hear it. So I turn the radio up and just kind of ignore them, let them have their argument, and keep driving. And eventually, the guy taps me on the shoulder, and he says, all right, man, here's the deal. Can we just take her to her house in Taylor Mill? She has to go home right now. And I was like, yeah, man, like, that's cool. Just tell me which way to go. So they stop. They're not talking at all anymore. They're mad at each other in the back of the car. So I drive them all the way out, back to her house in Taylor Mill. And I stop to let her out, and they both get out of the car. And the guy leaves, like, his phone or something in the car. So I'm like, all right, like, he's getting back in the car. So I'm just waiting there for him. They both get out. They argue for another couple minutes, and then he gets back in the car. And I'm kind of like, all right, like, where are you going now, buddy? And he's like, I'm still going to go to my friend's house in Newport. Like, they're expecting me. I wouldn't make plans if I wasn't going to follow through. And obviously so upset with his girlfriend. I'm like, I don't care, man, whatever. Like, I'm just going to drive him out there. So this guy's obviously upset, and we're driving out to Newport, and I hear him playing with a gun in my backseat. And at this point, I immediately start freaking out. Keeping my cool. I'm not really letting him know, but I'm, squeezing the wheel pretty hard, sweating. And I heard the guy argue with his girlfriend, so I hear that he's not a super rational guy. He wasn't over the top, but he didn't seem to have a clear mind. So I'm getting nervous. I hear him just like this clicking in the back seat, and I'm like, oh my God, like, what is he doing? And let the record show that I've been around shotguns my whole life, and I don't know like anything about handguns. I just hear the noise that I think is a gun. So I move my mirror to see what he's doing, and he's just clicking his seatbelt in and out of the buckle. And I just have this huge sigh of relief, and I'm like, oh my God, man, like, he's like, what? And I'm like, dude, I thought you had a gun. And he puts his hands up, he's like, what? No, I don't have a gun. I was like, oh, sorry, no, it's my bad, buddy. Like, I was just getting in, thinking too hard in my head. Like, I thought you were back there playing with a gun, and this kid's mortified. Like, no, sir, like, I don't have a gun. And poor guy, I really freaked him out for no reason. So he just, like, has his hands on his knees, like, letting me see his hands the whole rest of the way. And I drop him off, and I'm like, sorry about that, buddy. He's like, oh, no, like, you're okay. And it obviously scared him that I thought he had a gun. So poor guy had to go to his dinner without his girlfriend. he ended up paying like $60 just to drive all around when he really only went like 10 minutes away from his apartment, and he got in a fight with his girlfriend. So even though that I freaked myself out and got psyched out about the ride, he ended up having a worse night than I did. Poor guy. So I really love that story. I love the kid's reaction when I thought he had a gun, put his hands up in the back of my car. It was so funny. Not the most scared I've been while I was driving Uber. So before I tell you the story of the most scared I've been in an Uber ride, I want to tell you one of my favorite stories. This is the one that everyone liked the most when I put it on Snapchat. It was about Becky's French fries. And so for this ride, it was an Uber Eats ride. And with Uber Eats, with any ride, so when you order your Uber, the driver can accept it and they see where they have to go to pick you up, but you can't see where you're taking the person until after I click the button that you're in the car. So it's so that drivers don't cherry pick rides, because people need rides out to their homes, and they live far away. No driver's going to take it. So they do that so that everyone gets a good chance of getting picked up. So it's a gamble. You don't know if you're going to get a 5-minute ride, or if you're going to get a 40-minute ride. You just don't know until they're in your car. So the same goes for Uber Eats. So when you order your food, the driver accepts it. I can see, where I need to go to pick the food up, but I can't see where I'm taking it until after I click the button that I've picked the food up. So it's always a gamble. With Uber Eats, usually it's safer, because you can only, as a customer, you can only order the food from restaurants that are kind of near you. But this one was surprising. So I get this request to pick up food from a Gold Star Chili in Fort Mitchell, Kentucky, off the Buttermilk exit. And I drive out there. It's an order for Becky. I get there, and all she had ordered was a plain side of fries. So I'm thinking, all right, what kind of person orders just a side of fries from a chili restaurant on Uber? Like, why? You can get fries anywhere. Whatever. So I pick the fries up. I click the button to start the trip, and I see that it's taking me to Delhi, Ohio to deliver the fries. So with Northern Kentucky and Ohio, there's just the river. They're right next to each other. We all think of it kind of as the same place. But still, the thought that this person ordered a side of fries from a different state to get delivered to her, just a side of fries, is blowing my mind. So immediately I'm thinking, okay, Becky is insane. And it's going to be like a half-hour ride. So the fries aren't even going to be any good. So I'm like, all right, whatever. I'm just going to do the ride because I'm curious more than anything. So I pick the food up, and I'm blindly following my GPS, and it's taking me out, and I realize it wants me to take a ferry across the river to get to Delhi. And as I pull up, I'm thinking, no way in hell I'm taking a ferry to deliver Becky her fries. I'm not going to get on a ferry. I'm not going to pay for a ferry, because I don't think Uber reimburses. I've never taken a ferry as a driver, but I can't imagine that's an easy process. And either way, I'm not going to sit my car on a boat so Becky can get plain fries. And anyway, when I pull up to the ferry, it's closed anyway, so I couldn't, even if I was that nice of a guy. So I'm thinking, okay, I put it in my GPS, how to get there without the ferry, and it's going to be a 51-minute ride for Becky to get her fries. So at this point, I'm like, okay, the fries are going to be awful. Becky's not going to be happy. And I message the Uber help in the app, and I say, hey, this fries, first off, they wanted me to take a ferry. Figure that out. Don't try and make a driver take a ferry. That's nuts. And second, these fries are going to take me an hour to get there. This person's not going to be happy with them because they're going to be cold, mushy, Gold Star fries. The Uber person tells me, continue with the ride. You can reach out to the customer and see if they want to cancel it. Otherwise, just keep going. And, it's what you got to do. Try and get it. And I'm like, whatever. Fine. So I call Becky. And this was the craziest thing, because when you get a phone call from your Uber driver, it pops up as like a San Francisco number or something like that. Everyone knows when their Uber driver's calling them when they're waiting on an Uber. So I call Becky, it rings a couple times, and then the phone answers, and the voice just says, Buddy the Elf, what's your favorite color? And then hangs up without giving me a chance to say anything. So I'm just beside myself. Like, oh man, Becky, who are you? What is your life? what are you thinking? I was like, okay, this person. So my mind races. I'm like, what kind of person is Becky? Is she strung out? Is she just a big old person that needs her fries? Like, I can't imagine. Like, I'm trying to picture a person. And in this situation, Becky ordered fries from a different state. She's not answering the phone and talking to me as I try and explain to her that it's going to take an hour to get her fries. And she's just letting it all happen. So I'm like, all right, whatever. So I messaged the Uber person. I'm like, hey, they didn't really answer. And they're like, well, just deliver the food. We'll make sure you can't get a bad rating for it. So I was like, oh, all right, well, that sounds good to me. So at this point, like, I'm there's no way I'm not delivering these fries. I have to know. I have to meet Becky. So I put the directions in, 51 minutes. I drive all the way out there. The whole delivery ends up taking like an hour 10 from picking up the food and everything. So from the time she ordered her food, it was well over an hour. So as I'm getting close to the address, I realize it's an address for a neighborhood pool in Delhi. So I'm like, okay, like, that doesn't help me try and figure out what's going on. So I pull into the parking lot and I have my phone ready because at this point I've been Snapchatting this whole ride just as the developments keep coming. I couldn't help it. I had to document this. So I have my phone ready to video it and to get Becky on camera. As I pull up, there's just an 8-year-old girl in her swimsuit standing in the parking lot. So obviously I put my phone down right away because I'm not going to be some creep pulling up in a parking lot videoing a little girl. So I pull up to her and I say, hey, are you Becky? And she's like, yeah, those are for me. Like it was nothing. And I was like, okay, well, I just want to let you know, these fries are old now. It's probably going to be an expensive ride. So if you want to message Uber, all it's going to take is saying, hey, it took too long for these, because they wanted me to take the ferry. And you can probably get, reimbursed for it or credit. And she just blows me off, this little kid. She's like, whatever, man, like, takes the fries and just turns around while I'm, like, practically still talking to her. She could care less. So I'm thinking, okay, this little girl took her mom's phone. There's no way her mom gave her permission to make this order. I've never met a mom who would be cool with their kid ordering a side of fries from a different state. So her poor mom is going to get, like, a $40 charge for a side of soggy fries from Gold Star. And her daughter... I can't imagine. I can't even imagine what it was like after I dropped the fries off. I half wanted to follow her in just to see the exchange, because there's no way everyone was okay with what just went down with Becky's fries. So, that's the legendary story of Becky's fries. My wildest Uber delivery I've ever had. I doubt I'll ever have to deliver just a side of fries from state to state again, but if I do, I just pray that they're half as entertaining and disconcerted as Becky, or hopefully, I'm guessing Becky's daughter, right? It was probably Becky's phone. Anyway, really wild ride. So, the last story I want to tell now is of my scariest ride of all time. This is when people ask me for my Uber horror story. This is the first one I tell them. Because I've never had the drunk people throwing up in my car. I've never had anything bad. I've had people who are kind of rude, but it's nothing, people just don't feel like going out of their way to be nice or whatever. It doesn't bother me. But this one really freaked me out. I can't remember what the girl's name was. Woman. I was picking her and her husband up. They were leaving a wedding in Hotel Covington in Covington, Kentucky. So, I'm picking these people up. It's like 2 a.m. It's late. I pull up to Hotel Covington. They're severely intoxicated, rightfully so. It must have been a fun wedding. So this woman and her husband get in the back of my car, and she's drunk right away. She's being super social. She's like, "Hi, Mason, how are you? Thanks for picking us up." I'm like, "Oh, no problem." Husband's just not saying a word, stone-faced. Looks like he might be annoyed with how drunk his wife got. Either way, he's not saying a word. So she's just kind of going on about the wedding a little bit, and I'm driving, and I'm just, being polite, like, "Oh, that's interesting," and listening to her stories. And then at one point, she kind of stops her stories and says, "Mason, can I talk to you about something personal?" And I'm thinking like, "Oh, yeah, sure. Like, what's this drunk lady gonna, start talking about?" And she goes, "I really just like to watch people die." So immediately, I'm just pale. I'm like, oh my God. I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to swerve into this light pole here. I'm going to crash the car. Like, I'm watching, and I'm thinking, okay. She says this. Her husband's not saying a word. He's a big dude. I'm like, okay. He kills people. She watches. Fair enough. It didn't take me long to put all that together. So she says, I really just like to watch people die, like you can find videos online and people, when they take their own life, sometimes they'll video themselves and talk about it. And it's such, this pure emotion. And I'm just not saying a word. I'm like, what the hell? So she just keeps going. She's like, they'll do it different ways. And, or you can look up people who die in horrible accidents. And, there's footage of people getting hit by trains and they're just gone immediately. I just think that's so interesting that people are just here and they're not, and you can watch it. It's documented, And I'm like, I'm not going to agree with you. I didn't want any part of this. And she goes, does that make me weird, Mason? Is that weird? And I said, yeah, it is. Like, hopefully uncomfortable. I'm realizing she is way too drunk to notice how uncomfortable I am. And her husband's still just not saying a word, kind of looking at me, kind of looking out the window. And I'm like, does she talk about this often? Like, I am freaking out. I unbuckled my seatbelt at one point because I'm like, okay, I'm going to roll out of the car. Like, I was sure that she was going to kill me somehow. And it was like a 40-minute ride to get him home. And this was like 10 minutes into the ride. So I'm like, I got to sit with her in my car. And she talks about people dying and watching it online for a few minutes of just her monologuing about why she loves it so much. And I'm horrified by this person. And then, like it's nothing, she just switches the conversation over to talking about an old job she used to have at Sears. Like it's nothing. Like it's just more small talk, on to the next thing. And I'm like, I'm freaking out the whole rest of the ride. I'm just like, what's going on? I'm thinking, okay, I'm truly going to have to pull over and ask him to get out because I'm uncomfortable, and terrified. And I'm thinking, but I don't want to piss him off because this dude looks like a killer. He's going to kill me. And so I'm just driving. I'm flooring it. I'm flying because I want to get home, or to their home, as fast as I can. Get myself home as fast as I can so I can just get in the shower and cry. And I mean, I've never been more scared. Even though I was driving, I felt like I was not in control. I was like, this dude has done it before. She obviously has a taste for it. They're pros, man. Like, they're a crazy serial killer team. And I went there. I thought I was scared when I thought this poor kid had a gun in the back of my car. This lady had me freaking out. So we get all the way to her house. She didn't try to kill me, luckily. She gets out of the car. She gives me like the wedding party favor as a tip, which is pretty stupid. It was like a plastic snow globe, whatever. For all the emotional turmoil she just put me through, the plastic snow globe wedding party favor was not a good tip. The husband gets out of the car as soon as we pull up. I lock my doors as soon as they get out of the car. And they just walk straight inside. Gone. Never saw him again. I can only imagine that this woman woke up the next morning and was mortified. Hopefully, if she even remembered what she said. I hope that she regrets saying to a stranger that she loves to watch people die. No way to really know for sure. But that was the just worst ride I've ever had. They didn't do anything to my car. They didn't smell. I just was scared out of my mind. So, at the end of the day, great story from that lady. That's whenever customers, the go-to questions are always, so how long you been driving for Uber? And do you have any, what's the worst customer you've ever had? Do you have any bad stories? Those are always the go-tos. And I love to tell people that story because it is not what they expect at all. And it's horrifying, and it makes you really think about what you should be saying to a stranger. Because just driving people around is one of those things where people will just open up, man. Like, they have no reservations. They'll just be racist to you. They'll talk about their family and their private lives, and it's really weird. And luckily, I've really never had people I know as customers. So it's always strangers, and it's always people who... I never really talk about myself, but they really love to just just vent about everything that's going on in their lives. So those are my three good stories that I wanted to start this podcast off with. This is fun. I really like doing this. I'm going to keep driving with my new job. I have the time to do it, and I enjoy it, and hopefully I get more stories because I love to keep making this podcast and telling them. So thanks for listening, everybody. I'm going to do some more rides this week and hopefully have some more stories for you coming up. Talk to you later.